I was asked by my niece to show how to make my grain bread. So before you get started, I would advise, because you have to have boiling water. So what tea kettle, whatever you have to heat your water, get it hot. And then you take a cup of oat flour. My flour, I get the grain up at the Amish, both grains, and I have a stone ground mill, and this is a wheat flour. You put a cup of wheat flour in, so that's 1 cup of oat, 1 cup of wheat, and anyhow, I grind my own grain, which I'm blessed to have, and the flaxseed, I just put two good healthy tablespoons. All of these grains are extremely good for you. If you hunt them up out of your computer, I guess, you'll find that out. Then you put in a half a cup of honey. I already did this ahead of time to save a little bit of time. And then a half a cup of Crisco. You can use lard if you like, and instead of honey you can use brown sugar. I like honey because it's more natural, and I like the dark honey. We've talked to beekeepers and they say that the dark honey is healthier for you. So anyhow, you mix this all up the best you can. I'm a hands-on person, so you'll see me put my hands in there and get it all mixed up. After you do that, the best you can anyway, because it'll all dissolve, and it doesn't matter if your honey has gone to sugar. The hot water you put in there will dissolve that. So then you take your hot water and put a cup of hot water over top of this mixture. As I'll let that here. And you mix that up. Then you take I usually put in 2 cups of flour, a white flour, but that's after you do the yeast. Then you take 2 tablespoons, and I usually have a pretty big heaping tablespoons of dried yeast, and it's 2 1/4 cup of lukewarm water. So what I do, because it's easier, is take and use a lot of my spigot water for the cold water. And then the last one is just a little bit. And then you mix it up. I use a whisper, I guess you'd call it. And this is poured over top of this mixture. Now, how you know that's ready is that your yeast will start bubbling. It doesn't really take too long to do so. Once that starts bubbling, I'd say maybe, oh golly, 5-10 minutes at the most. As you'll see it start kind of snapping, so to speak. And once that's done, then I put in a tablespoon of salt. Until I'm done with it, it's a tablespoon. I know the recipe that I use said teaspoon, but I usually put a little bit more. So I would think that even though that hasn't been 5 minutes. When you look at this, you'll notice the water moving a little bit, the moisture moving. On that is your bubbles of the yeast starting to pop up. So you know now you're ready for the salt. And you put, like I said, I usually put a good, what you call teaspoon. I'm not much on measuring a whole lot. And you put that in there. And now you can stir it around. And then you start adding the white flour. I start out with a couple cups. If you notice my fancy bowls, I like to keep, because I buy everything in bulk. And like I say, I get it up at the Amish store. They have a, how I get my grain is they have a feed mill up there, up out of Dayton. And the other stuff I get at the bulk store. So anyway, then add a couple more. It's hard to say exactly how much white flour, only because, as I'll show you, you then go by the feel of the dough. That's a very, very big, that's why maybe a lot of folks can't make bread, because it's strictly by the feel. So anyhow, you mix that up and use your hands. Now you can certainly see that that is way too sticky. Now you grab another cup, mix it around. Now if you were making raisin bread, here is where you would add your raisins, or a little bit sooner. And I put cinnamon and a little bit of vanilla in mine. See that that's too sticky. So grab another one. So I don't know actually how many I've got in there now. And if you were doing buns, all you do, instead of making the bread, you have to, the dough is all the same no matter what I make, and that is maple rolls, raisin bread, our grandmother would call sticky buns. You can make with that and regular buns. Okay, now we'll put your hand down in there. Now see how your hand comes out a little wee bit left. Use your hands in, don't put a whole lot. Mix that in. It takes a lot of, I guess a lot of strength in your hands, which I'm blessed to have. Okay, now, and put your hand back down in. Now it's holding, but the dough isn't sticking to your hand. That tells you you have enough flour in there. So pat it down and put it in a warm place. I am blessed to have a window that the sun comes in. So I'll put it there, or if not, put it on top of your stove, turn it on, and then cover it and let it raise. And that takes about a half an hour. Half an hour, that's what it looks like. Punch it down. Take it out of the bowl. I put just very little flour. And you work it a little bit if there's any air bubbles. This recipe makes 3 nice loaves. Work it a little bit. That ought to be good enough. Then you can use a knife. I don't. I just make 3 loaves by squeezing the dough in half. Then you have to look and see which maybe don't have enough, to try to make equal. loaves. We look pretty good. Okay. Then you roll it around a little bit more and shape your loaf. And how you leave your top. If your top is bumpy or whatever, for whatever reason, that's what your top looks like when you take it out of the oven. So that's one. Roll it around. Shape it into a loaf. As smooth as you can. It's like smacking a baby's hiney. And the other one, I had these. I use Crisco for the sides. You can use a spray, whatever you want. Okay, shake this one. Put it in the pan and put them back on the heat. And let that raise for another half hour. This is what your bread looks like after about a half an hour. You always have probably one loaf, maybe whatever, bigger than the other one, depending on how you split the dough up. And put it in the oven. It's 350 for a half an hour or 30-35 minutes, all depending on what your oven does as far as heat goes. Using the same dough recipe, I'm going to make raisin bread. So you still with the same recipe, take a cup of the oat, cup of the wheat, 2 good tablespoons of flaxseed. Flaxseed is wonderful for you. Check it out on your computer, you'll see. Put 2 of them in there. Now goes a half a cup of Crisco. Like I said before, you can use lard. I rather like Crisco. A half a cup of honey. Once again, you can use brown sugar. I like honey, as I said earlier, because it's natural. So you take and you start mixing it up. Once you get the honey off your fingers, mix it up with the spoon first. Okay. Then I go from there to my hands. I'm a strictly hands-on person. Mix it up the best you can. Okay. And then you take a cup of hot boiling water. Pour this over the top. Mix it up like we did before. It's the same procedure as you do your regular bread. Get it all mixed up good. Okay. That's good enough. You can see how it should look. Okay. Then you put 2 and a quarter cup of warm water. A little trusty pan. And the last quarter, if the water has cooled down a little, I just leave it and don't put any cold in it. Then you take 2 heaping tablespoons of yeast, dried yeast. I get it at the Amish, but you can get it probably most anywhere. I don't really know because I get it from there. You take that and you pour it over the top. And then here is where it's probably 5-10 minutes. It's hard kind of to judge because yeast works kind of different, but you want it to start bubbling. You'll see the water actually, your bubbles will break, start moving the water. That's when it's about time to add your salt and then the white flour. Now, I don't hope you can see the bubbles starting to form and the water moving a little bit. That kind of tells you your yeast is ready. Then you take a, I'm going to say tablespoon of salt. Doesn't have to be flowing over, but tablespoon of salt. Mix that around. And start adding your white flour. I start out with a couple cups. Get it mixed all in good. And then when that's mixed up as good as you can, put another couple of cups. So probably if you add these up, I would say, oh my, 4 or 5 cups. But I'm not going to hold you to that, or me, because I'm not sure. I just am not much of a measurer. I've been doing this for so long. I started out with white bread, then came up, that was 50 years ago, from our oldest sister, God love her, who's with the Lord right now. And so anyhow, I kept working with it and grabbed this from this little recipe and that one from that one. And came up with my own. So anyhow, you can certainly see that needs flour yet. When that really sticks to your fingers, that tells you you need more flour. And probably, if anyone was to, so to speak, either get into trouble making bread, that might be why. Maybe either too much, too little. But once again, see how it's sticking? You don't want that. Put another, a cup or half a cup if you're afraid to kind of be adventurous a little. Mix it up. I'm not the world's neatest baker, I'll have you know, but it gets done. Okay, now you can still see it's still sticking. Not enough flour, but go at it slow. Don't put a lot in there. Keep it mixed. Like I said before, it takes a little muscle, so to speak, because you're mixing raw dough. Okay, try it again. I see how it's not really, it is, but it's not, because that was from before. Let me do it this way. So that's, then you know, if it's sticking a little wee bit, you're good. If you were making raisin bread, this actually should have been, the raisin should have been added whenever you put, let's say, your first couple cups of flour in after you've added the salt. But you can do it this way as well, except that it makes it a little bit harder to mix. Then you put, I like cinnamon. I like a little bit of vanilla. Then you mix all of this up. It's a lot easier if you was to do this when you've added the salt and first couple cups of flour. But we're going to do this anyway. This bread is for my sister. She has never eaten raisin bread, so I'll make her raisin bread, but this is harder to do it this way. So when you're doing it, remember to put it in when you're adding your salt, your raisins and everything. But it could still be done. Okay, now you leave it raise for half an hour as you do the other bread. Cover it over. Hopefully, like I said, you have a window the sun's in. If not, on your oven, top of your oven. Just someplace where it's warm. That's what it looks like. Now, if you want to do buns, you just take, after your dough is all mixed up, like you're going to break it off into loaves, you'll take and flour your area a little bit, put the dough on top of it, roll it out to, oh boy, maybe what, a little more than a ½ inch, and then take a knife, cut it, make your squares or however you want. Have your 9 by 13 pans greased, and lay them in your pans. It makes 2 pans of maple rolls, so it should make 2 pans of buns. And it's the same thing, except remember that the dough is a lot thinner. Time-wise of raising is about the same, but when you're baking it, watch your dough because it's a lot thinner. And it all depends. If you leave it get too brown, you're going to have dried buns or maple rolls. And that's all you do with that. This is what your bread hopefully will look like when you bring it out of the oven. With using Crisco, it just kind of slips right out of there. That's one loaf. That's the second loaf. I have to put butter on top. It makes a nice top. And spread it around the best you can. But you see what I meant when I said about the top? If you leave it bumpy or whatever, it'll bake that way. But this hopefully looks pretty smooth. My sister will like it. This is for her as well. Raisin bread and this. Okay, that's what the raisin bread looks like, same as the other. Punch it down. Turn it over. Take a little bit of flour once again. Put it on your counter. I'm a counter person. Put it on top. Work it around some. can certainly see your raisins in there. Get some of the air bubbles out. It's the same process, only this is with raisins. If you're doing buns, what you do with that is, when it gets like this, to where you're gonna, in other words, this is going to go in pans. When you get to that point, you take, if you're doing buns, roll this out, maybe, half an inch, maybe a little bit more, and take a knife, cut it however big you want the buns. It makes probably, as it does maple rolls, 2 pans of 9 by 13. So then I'll take, same as we did before, break the dough into, I call them blobs, dough balls, so to speak. Try to even them up a little bit. That don't look too bad. And the same process, shape them into a loaf. Same with this one. Roll it around. Shape it into a loaf. Put it in the pan. Do the last one. You'll have wonderful raisin bread. Put it in the pan. Bring it over. My son left me, so I'm talking about the sun outside. So I put it on top of the stove where there's heat and cover it over. Now time to stick it in the oven like you did the regular bread. Same process. Now, this bread has no preservatives in it. Nothing at all that I would know of. And when it's done, as we did the regular bread, and it's cooled down, I wrap it in aluminum foil, put it in a big 2-gallon plastic bag, and once you have cut it, a real big tip is to store it in your refrigerator. Then that way it won't dry out on you as you're using it. And that's the story of the bread